If someone had told me 5 years ago that my life would one day shatter because of a simple question, just 7 harmless words, "When is the wedding going to be?" I would have laughed, or cried, or both. But life has a cruel sense of humor. And sometimes, the biggest heartbreak doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people you spent your entire life loving. My name is Renata, and for 71 years, I believed I understood love. I believed I understood motherhood. I believed I understood sacrifice. But the truth is, I knew nothing. Not until the day my daughter-in-law smiled at me, a smile so cold it could freeze blood, and said the words that changed my life forever. Before everything fell apart, I lived quietly in my modest 2-bedroom house at the edge of town. The kind of house with creaking floors, the smell of fresh coffee in the mornings, and sunbeams that warmed the living room in a way that felt like a gentle hug. It wasn't perfect, but it was home. For years, that home didn't belong only to me. Not emotionally, at least. It belonged to my son, Max, the only child I had, the only family I had left after losing my husband, Robert, decades ago. Max was my pride, my joy, my reason to breathe on days when loneliness wrapped around me like a cold scarf. And when he married Lena, well, I thought I was gaining a daughter. If only I knew. I still remember the first time Max introduced me to Lena. A beautiful girl, sharp eyes, charming smile, confident, a little too polished. But I convinced myself she was just nervous, and I wanted to like her. I truly did, because when you're a mother, you don't just love your child. You love the person they choose. Or at least you try. But the first red flag came early. I had invited them for dinner at my house. I spent the whole day cooking, roasted chicken, garlic potatoes, apple pie, Max's childhood favorite. I had set the table with the good china, the kind I only used for special occasions. When they arrived, Max hugged me tightly. But Lena, she walked past me without a glance, without a greeting, as if she were entering a hotel lobby, not her future mother-in-law's home. I brushed it off. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she was shy. But as we sat down, she pulled out her phone and said, "Max, take a picture. My followers like food posts. Not thank you. Not, this looks wonderful. Just content for her social media." Max laughed. I forced a smile. And somewhere deep inside me, a tiny voice whispered that things might change. But I silenced it, the way mothers often silence warnings when they want their children to be happy. When Max moved in with Lena, money became complicated. They struggled with rent, she said. Max's car broke down, she said. There were bills, emergencies, medical issues, unexpected expenses. And every time they needed help, they called me. And every time they called, I said yes, because isn't that what mothers do? The first year, I helped a little. The second year, I helped a lot. By the third year, I wasn't just helping. I was supporting their entire life. $500 a month for rent, $200 for groceries, $800 for her medical visit, $2,500 loan for Max's car he never repaid, $1,200 for living room furniture, $600 for their AC repair. I wasn't a mother anymore. I was a bank account, one with a beating heart and emotions they didn't care about. But I didn't see it. I didn't want to see it. Love blinds you, especially the love you give your children. About a year before the wedding incident, I noticed something strange. Whenever I talked to Max, he sounded distant, distracted, always in a hurry. And Lena, fewer smiles, fewer thank yous, more attitude. I invited them over often, but they rarely came. When they did, they always seemed impatient, as if counting the minutes until they could leave. Sometimes, they'd sit on the sofa and whisper to each other, thinking I couldn't hear. Sometimes Lena would roll her eyes when I asked a question. Sometimes Max would give her a look, the kind a trapped person gives their captor. But every time I confronted him about her behavior, he'd defend her. She's stressed. She's tired. You're overreacting, Mom. So I stayed quiet. I swallowed my discomfort, my loneliness, my sadness. Because mothers are expected to endure everything. It happened on a quiet Sunday morning. I had made pancakes, the fluffy kind Max loved as a child, and decided to surprise them with breakfast. I drove to their apartment and rang the bell. No answer. I rang again. Still nothing. Just when I was about to leave, the door opened, and Lena appeared, hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless, wearing a dress far too elegant for a lazy Sunday. "Oh," she said, barely hiding her annoyance. "It's you." Max appeared behind her, wearing a suit. "Aren't you two going somewhere?" I asked, confused. Lena gave me a quick smile. "Just a family event." Family. The word stung. I wasn't invited. I wasn't included. But I said nothing. I simply handed Max the pancakes I'd made for him and watched him mumble a thank you before closing the door. A few months before the wedding reveal, I had already started preparing. I bought a beautiful pale pink dress. Elegant, classy, simple. Perfect for a mother of the groom. I hung it carefully in my closet and checked on it often, imagining the photos, the celebration, the joy. I imagined standing next to Max on the biggest day of his life. I imagined seeing his smile. But the dress stayed hanging, waiting for a day that would never come. The memory plays in my mind like a movie scene. I was standing in my living room, sunlight pouring through the curtains, dust floating in the air like tiny stars. Max was on the sofa, staring at his phone. Lena was sitting comfortably, legs crossed, smug expression as if she owned the place, even though the sofa she sat on was one I had bought for them. I picked up my phone and asked gently, "Max, honey, when is the wedding going to be? I need to buy the shoes and schedule a hair appointment." He hesitated. His throat tightened. He didn't answer. But Lena did. She turned her head slowly, looked directly at me, smiled a smile colder than winter, and said, "Oh, we got married yesterday." The room spun. "What?" She shrugged casually. "It was yesterday. We only invited special people." "Oh, we got married yesterday." Her voice was sweet, too sweet. Sugar-coated poison. "We only invited special people." For a moment, I didn't understand. My brain simply refused to process the words. My mouth went dry. I felt something inside me crumble, something that had held me together for years. I looked at my son. Max avoided my eyes, staring down at his hands like a guilty child caught stealing. He didn't speak. He didn't defend me. He didn't even look at me. He just sat there. And I stood frozen, like someone had pressed pause on my body but kept my heart wide awake, forcing me to feel every drop of humiliation. Only special people. 3 words that sliced through me like knives. I had bought their groceries, paid their rent, filled their fridge, gave them a home whenever they showed up crying about bills, emergencies, or hardships. But in the end, I wasn't special enough to witness their vows. Not even special enough to know they were engaged. My throat tightened. My heart hammered painfully. But I still asked, in a trembling voice I didn't recognize, You got married? Yesterday." Lena smiled wider, enjoying this moment. "Yes," she repeated proudly. "It was perfect. Perfect. Perfect without me." I tried so hard to maintain my composure, but my knees felt weak. I sat down slowly, like an old woman suddenly learning her age. I don't understand," I whispered. Why didn't you tell me?" Max finally spoke. "Mom, it was private. Very small. Just a few people." "A few people. Not me. Never me." "But I began, my voice cracking. "I bought a dress. I thought I would be part of." Lena interrupted. "It was our decision. We didn't want drama. And honestly, big weddings are overrated." Overrated. I felt a stab of pain deeper than any I had ever known. "Why didn't you at least call me afterward?" I whispered. Lena shrugged as if I were asking why the weather changed. "It was late. And, well, we celebrated with my family. They were so supportive." Her family. Supportive. The word echoed inside me, sharp and cruel. My son, my baby, had celebrated the most important day of his life with people who had known him for only 5 years. Not the woman who had raised him for 35. I tried to breathe, but the air felt thick, suffocating. "So," I whispered, "no one thought to tell me? To invite me? To include me?" Max rubbed the back of his neck. "Mom, please don't make a scene." "Make a scene." My heart cracked. "Make a scene," I repeated, stunned. "Is that what you think I'm doing?" Lena crossed her arms, bored. "Renata, it wasn't personal. Please don't act dramatic." "Not personal. Not personal. They had erased me from their wedding, the biggest day of their lives. and it wasn't personal. I felt the tears burning behind my eyes. But I refused to let them fall. Not in front of her. Not in front of anyone who found pleasure in my pain. I swallowed hard. My dress, the one I bought for the ceremony, it's still hanging in my closet. Max said nothing. Lena smiled again, that chilling, sharp smile that told me everything I needed to know. "Oh, you can still wear it," she said carelessly. "Maybe to our anniversary dinner next year." Then she laughed, and something inside me broke. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my bed with the pink dress lying beside me, a dress chosen with love, with pride, with hope. It looked so small now, so pointless. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A notification. Against my better judgment, I opened Instagram. And there they were. The photos. My son is in a suit, Lena in a white dress. Her parents were smiling proudly. Her siblings clinked champagne glasses. Lena kissing Max under a floral arch. My chest tightened, so sharply I grabbed my heart. So many pictures. So much joy. And not a trace of me. Not even a mention. Not even a thought. For 7 days, they didn't call. Not once. I lived in a fog, moving through my house like a ghost. I made coffee, but it tasted like nothing. I went to bed, but sleep refused to come. Every corner reminded me of the life I had sacrificed for them. Every object reminded me of a memory now poisoned. On the 7th day, my phone rang. I saw Lena's name. My heart clenched. Was this the apology? Was this the moment they realized what they had done? I answered. "Renata," she said urgently, "the rent is overdue. The landlord is threatening us. Did you forget to make the transfer?" Transfer. No apology. No remorse. Transfer. That was the moment the pain inside me turned into something else. Something sharper. Something stronger. A memory surfaced. Her voice sang, "We only invited special people." And suddenly, I knew what I had to do. "Lena," I said quietly. So quietly she didn't recognize the danger. "Yes." "Can you send the money today?" "No." There was a long silence. Then, "What?" "I'm not sending the money," I said firmly. "I warned you, remember? I only help special people." And this time I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. On the other end of the line, I heard her breathing quicken. "Renata, I don't understand. We were always special to you." "No," I said. "You were always using me." She gasped, the sound of someone who suddenly realized their puppet had cut its strings. "Renata, please." I ended the call. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. But I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Power. That night, for the first time in a long time, I cried. But the tears were different. Not the soft tears of sadness. Not the quiet tears of disappointment. These were hot, angry tears. Tears of years of exploitation. Tears of humiliation. Tears of a woman who finally saw the truth. I cried for who I had been. For who I had allowed myself to become. And when the tears finally stopped, I knew. Tomorrow everything changes. I woke before the sun. I looked in the mirror. Same wrinkles, same tired eyes. But something in me had shifted. I wasn't the woman who begged for love anymore. I wasn't the mother desperately seeking validation. I had been blind for too long. And now, I could finally see. I was done being used. I was done being manipulated. I was done being the kind of mother who believed she had to buy her son's affection. Today, I would take my life back. By noon, I was standing inside the familiar bank. Mr. Klein, the branch manager, saw me and smiled warmly. He had processed every transfer I ever made to Max and Lena. "Mrs. Richter," he said kindly, "what can I do for you today?" "I'd like to cancel all automatic transfers," I said firmly. "And I want to protect my accounts." He blinked in surprise. "Are you sure? This is a big change." I nodded. For the first time in years, "I am very sure." As he typed on his computer, my phone buzzed nonstop. Calls from Max. From Lena. From numbers I didn't recognize. I turned the phone off. Mr. Klein finished the paperwork and handed me the documents. "Mrs. Richter," he said gently, "I've known you a long time. I hope you are making this choice for yourself, not because someone pressured you." I smiled. "For the first time, Mr. Klein, I am not pressured at all. When I walked out of the bank, I felt lighter, like I had left my chains behind. But peace never lasts long when you take power away from someone who depends on you. When I arrived home, 3 cars were parked in front of my house. Max's, Lena's, and a car I didn't recognize. They were inside my house. Inside, without my permission. My heart pounded, but I stood tall as I opened the door. And there they were. Max with his head in his hands, Lena pacing frantically, and a stranger, an older man in a gray suit, rummaging through my personal papers on my dining table. "What is happening here?" I asked sharply. They froze. The war had begun. My hand froze on the doorknob as I took in the scene inside my own home. Max, my only child, sat on my sofa, elbows on his knees, face buried in his hands. Lena marched across the room like a restless shadow, muttering under her breath. And at my dining table, a stranger in a gray suit, about 50, polished, smug, was digging through my private documents as if my life were an open file. Something inside me snapped. "What?" I said, my voice louder and sharper than expected. "Is happening here?" All heads turned toward me. Max's eyes were red and frantic. Lena's posture stiffened. And the stranger stood up and forced a fake smile. But the silence before they spoke, that silence told me everything. They hadn't come for reconciliation. They hadn't come for forgiveness. They had come for control. "Mrs. Richter," the man said smoothly, extending his hand like we were at a polite business meeting. "I'm Dr. Fisher, a family law attorney. Your children have called me because they are concerned about your mental well-being." Concerned. Mental well-being. The words tasted like poison. I didn't shake his hand. Instead, I walked straight to the table and gathered my papers, my bank statements, retirement accounts, medical documents, things no one had a right to see. "These are my documents," I said coldly. "You have no permission to touch them." Lena stepped forward, plastering a fake, trembling smile on her face. "Renata, honey, please don't overreact. We're worried about you. You've been acting confused." Confused. The same woman who told me I wasn't a special person now tried to gaslight me into believing I'd lost my mind. I stared at her. "I'm not confused," I said evenly. "I've never been clearer." "Mom," Max said finally, standing up. His voice was low but dripping with guilt and anger layered together. "Why did you cut off the transfers? Why didn't you answer our calls? Why are you doing this?" "Why am I doing this?" My heart twisted painfully. "I'm protecting myself," I said softly. "I have every right to stop financing your life." His jaw clenched. "Mom, we have responsibilities. You can't just—" I laughed. A short, hollow, bitter sound. "I can't? Who says I can't?" Max looked shocked. He wasn't used to my backbone. He was used to a mother who said yes even when it broke her heart. He was used to a mother who sacrificed until she had nothing left. He wasn't used to this version of me, the one who had finally woken up. "Dr. Fisher," the lawyer, cleared his throat. "Mrs. Richter, your children believe your financial decisions recently have been concerning. Sudden changes like this can indicate mental decline. They want to ensure you're safe, which is why we've prepared a temporary power of attorney document. If you sign it, Max and Lena can manage your finances until things stabilize." And then he placed a folder in front of me. A legal trap, a leash, a cage, a weapon disguised as a helping hand. I picked up the folder. I didn't even open it. Instead, I walked to the kitchen trash can, lifted the lid, and dropped the entire document inside. The sound of paper hitting plastic had never felt so satisfying. 3 jaws dropped at once. "You can't do this to us!" Lena shouted. The sweetness evaporated. Her voice wasn't gentle now. It was sharp, furious, entitled. "We were counting on your help. Counting on my money," I corrected her. "Renata, don't twist things," she cried. "You're important to us." "Important or convenient?" I asked. Her silence answered for her. Then Max stepped closer, anger replacing shame. "You're going to regret this. You think you can just cut us out? You think you can abandon us?" Abandon. The insult cut deep. "I raised you alone," I whispered. "I gave you everything. But I am not required to fund your life forever." "Dr. Fisher snapped his briefcase closed. "Mrs. Richter, he said coldly, your refusal to cooperate strengthens the case for declaring you legally incompetent. If you continue behaving irrationally, a judge will assign my client's guardianship over you. For a moment, my blood turned to ice. This wasn't manipulation anymore. This was war. Out, I said, pointing to the door. All of you. Get out of my house. Mom, Max started. Out, I repeated louder this time. Or I will call the police. Lena stared at me with hatred. Doctor. Fisher's jaw tightened in annoyance. Max looked at me with shock that I was no longer his docile, obedient mother. They gathered their things slowly. Lena tried one last manipulative tactic. You're old, Renata. You think you can live alone forever? Who's going to take care of you? I've been alone for years, I replied. The only difference is now it's by choice. I opened the door for them. Max paused in the doorway and said through clenched teeth, This will end badly for you. No, I said quietly. It ended badly the moment you decided money mattered more than your mother. And then I shut the door. Hard. After they left, I stood in the middle of my living room. A room filled with things I had bought for them, memories I had built for them, love I had poured into them. But for the first time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like freedom. I breathed, really breathed, for what felt like the first time in years. No tears came. Not yet. The anger and adrenaline were too fresh. Instead, I sat down and began writing. Everything they had done. Every dollar I had spent. Every moment they had manipulated me. I calculated the total again. $33,400. Years of sacrifices. Years of giving until my hands were empty. And for what? For a son who saw me as an ATM. For a daughter-in-law who saw me as an obstacle. For a family that didn't include me. Writing it all down felt like scraping poison from my skin. That night, when the adrenaline finally faded, the tears came. Not soft tears, not gentle ones. They came in violent waves, shaking my body, soaking my pillow. I cried for all the times I had been used. For all the moments I had been invisible. For all the love I had given that was never returned. But beneath the sadness, beneath the grief, a new feeling grew. A small, glowing ember. Strength. The kind of strength you don't gain from being loved. The kind of strength you gain from surviving heartbreak after heartbreak and finally saying, Enough! I woke up before dawn. My eyes were swollen, my throat raw. But my heart was clearer than it had been in decades. I looked in the mirror. The woman staring back at me was older, wrinkled, tired, but her eyes held fire. I'm done, I whispered to myself. I'm done being your victim. I spent the morning doing something I had forgotten how to do. Living for myself. I made myself a special breakfast. I sat at the table and ate without rushing. I listened to birds outside instead of worrying about their emergencies. Then, I grabbed my purse and left the house. There were places I needed to go. My first stop was the hardware store. Mr. Sommer recognized me instantly. I had been there dozens of times, always buying something to fix Max and Lena's apartment. But today, Good morning, Mrs. Richter, he said kindly. What do you need? I need new locks, I said firmly. The best ones you have, and I need them installed today. His eyebrows shot up. For your house? Yes, I said. For my house. For myself. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. Ethan, his son, came from the back. Tall, polite, good with tools. Do you also want a camera system? He asked casually. We've been installing a lot lately. Finally, I smiled. Yes, I said. Yes, I do. While choosing the locks, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Renata, Lena's voice said immediately. Please don't hang up. We need to talk. I closed my eyes, tired already. Speak. She began softly, too softly. The sweetness was back, the syrupy, manipulative tone she used whenever she needed something. We feel terrible about the wedding. Really. Max and I want to make it up to you. How about a special dinner? Just us. We can cook together. Like family. Family. I almost laughed. Lena, I said. How much rent do you owe? Silence. A sharp, uncomfortable silence. Finally she said, 2 months. $1,000. But that's not why. That's exactly why you're calling, I cut in. You miss my money. Not me. There was a sharp inhale. Renata, please. I hung up, blocked her number, turned the phone off. Today was not a day for their emergencies. Today was mine. I walked into the salon, a place I hadn't visited in a year. Mrs. Richter. My stylist Cynthia said, surprised. We thought you vanished. I forgot something important, I said softly. What's that? That I deserve to feel good too. She smiled warmly. And for the next 2 hours, I let someone take care of me for a change. She cut my hair, colored it, did my nails, massaged my hands. When I looked in the mirror afterward, I saw a woman who was finally coming back to life. You look beautiful, Cynthia said. No, I whispered. I look free. When I arrived home, an older woman sat on my steps holding a mug. I recognized her, Eleanor, my quiet neighbor for years. Mrs. Richter, she said gently. I heard shouting yesterday. I got worried. Are you all right? Her concern, genuine, unforced, touched something deep inside me. Come in, I told her. I'll make you coffee, and I'll tell you something unbelievable. We sat at my kitchen table while I poured my heart out. She listened without judgment, and when I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. My daughter did the same to me, she whispered. These children think parents are banks. They think love equals money, but we can change that. And that was the moment I realized I was not alone. In the days that followed my conversation with Eleanor, everything felt strangely peaceful. The new locks were installed. The cameras were mounted around the house like silent guardians. And for the first time, I slept without fear. But peace, especially in the middle of a war, never lasts long. Max and Lena were not done. They were regrouping, planning, plotting, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. And I, in my brief moment of comfort, didn't realize the storm building just outside my door. It started with the car. One afternoon, as I watered my roses, I saw Max's car drive slowly past my house. Very slowly, slower than anyone would drive unless they were watching something. He didn't stop. He didn't wave. He just stared. The next day, it happened again. This time, Lena's car trailing behind. And then again, and again. Different hours, different speeds, always watching. At first, I tried to ignore it, pretend I didn't notice, pretend it didn't terrify me. But every time their car passed, my heart beat faster. Were they planning another intrusion? Were they plotting something new? Were they waiting for me to break? I documented every visit, every suspicious passing. Mr. Weber had told me, keep a record. It will help us. So I did. Friday morning, I was having breakfast, eggs, toast, tea, a meal that for once tasted like peace, when the doorbell rang. I checked the cameras. A woman stood outside, well-dressed, professional, carrying a folder. Not Lena, not Max, not anyone I recognized. But something about her posture told me this visit wasn't friendly. I opened the door, just enough to speak through the gap. Yes. She smiled politely. Good morning, Mrs. Renata Richter. My name is Mrs. Schmidt. I'm a social investigator from the Office of Senior Services. We received a report that you may be in a high-risk situation. I'm here for a wellness check. A wellness check. My stomach dropped. Max and Lena had escalated the war. They were trying to involve the government now. May I see your identification? I asked. She showed it. Legitimate. Official. I'd like to come in and speak with you for a few minutes, she said gently. It's standard procedure. Standard procedure, I repeated, my voice flat. I knew what this was. A trap. A quiet, professional trap designed to build a case of incompetence. I took a deep breath. I will allow you in, I said carefully, but I want my lawyer present before I answer any questions. She hesitated. Ma'am, it's not necessary. This is an illegal interrogation. It's simply a wellness check. If you have nothing to hide, that phrase, the one abusers always use. If you have nothing to hide, it poured gasoline on the slow-burning fire inside me. I lifted my chin. I'm calling my lawyer, I said firmly. He will be here in 20 minutes. You may wait in the living room. She didn't like that. Her smile tightened. The polite mask slipped for a second. But she sat down and waited. 20 minutes felt like hours, but eventually, Mr. Weber stepped inside my house. His eyes took in the situation instantly, the unfamiliar woman, her folder, her tight smile. "Good morning," he said stiffly. "I'm Mrs. Richter's attorney. Who are you?" "Mrs. Schmidt," she repeated. "I'm conducting a wellness check based on reports from concerned family members." Mr. Weber folded his arms. Family members who tried to trick her into signing a power of attorney? Family members who entered her house illegally? Family members who have financially exploited her for years? Mrs. Schmidt's smile faltered. "I'm simply following protocol." "No, Mr. Weber interrupted smoothly. "You are participating in a strategically timed harassment attempt. And I will be documenting this." She shifted uncomfortably. "Can we continue the assessment? You may ask questions," Mr. Weber replied, "but every answer must be recorded accurately. Any misrepresentation will result in legal consequences for your department." She swallowed. "Very well." She opened her folder. "Mrs. Richter, it has been reported that you have shown significant changes in your financial behavior." "Yes," I said calmly. "I stopped giving money to people who used me." She blinked. "And that you installed unnecessary surveillance systems due to potential paranoia." "Paranoia," I repeated, "or protection from family members who broke into my home and searched my documents." Mr. Weber nodded approvingly. "And that you have isolated yourself from your loved ones." "Isolation," I scoffed. "I have more friends now than I've had in years. Real friends. People who care about me, not my bank account." Mrs. Schmidt's pen slowed. I decided to finish the job. "You want to know why I stopped supporting them?" I continued. "Because they left me out of their wedding. Because they humiliated me. Because they only call when they want money. Because they try to force me into signing away my autonomy. And because now, after cutting them off financially, they are making false claims about my mental health." Silence. The truth hit her harder than any Limax, and Lena had fed her. She cleared her throat and looked at Mr. Weber. "Is it true that you handle your own finances?" "Yes, and I can show you documentation." "Do you take care of yourself independently?" "I drive. I cook. I clean. I maintain my home. I have a social circle. I'm physically active." "You take any medication?" "Aspirin. When needed. That's all." Mr. Weber pulled out Dr. Moore's evaluation. "Here is a comprehensive cognitive assessment performed last week," he said. "Her results are excellent, higher than average for her age." Mrs. Schmidt reviewed the papers, and the color drained from her face. After several minutes, she closed her folder and stood. "Based on this evaluation and the information you have provided," she said slowly, "I see no need for further investigation. I will close this case." Just like that. One battle won. But the war wasn't over. Not even close. After she left, Mr. Weber turned to me. "Renata," he said gently, "they're desperate. People like them don't stop. They escalate." "What more can they do?" I asked. "They can attempt something drastic," he said, "like filing an incompetence lawsuit." My heart sank. "Can they win?" "Not with the evidence we have," he said. "But they may fabricate more. They may enlist false witnesses. They may claim erratic behavior." "They already have," I whispered. I told him about the drive-bys, the calls, the visits. He took notes. "We'll be ready," he promised. But his eyes told a different truth. He wasn't optimistic. He was preparing for war. That afternoon, Eleanor arrived with a basket of homemade cookies. She sat beside me on the couch, her eyes full of strength. "Whatever they're doing," she said, "we'll fight it." She called Cynthia from the salon. Cynthia called Maria. Maria called Carmen and Alfreda. And by evening, my living room was full of women, some older, some younger, all strong. All survivors of their own betrayals. They shared stories that made my heart ache and my spine stiffen. Eleanor spoke first. "My daughter once tried to declare me incompetent so she could take my house," she said. "She said I wasn't thinking straight, because I wanted to spend my own money. Maria added, my brother almost forced me to sign over my inheritance because he said I didn't need it. Carmen wiped a tear. My daughter only visited when she needed money. When I stopped helping, she said I had dementia. And Alfreda, wise, dignified, 80 years old, took my hands gently. Dear, she said, they always say the same things. You're confused. You're paranoid. You're old. It's the script of manipulators. I nodded slowly. And do you know the saddest part? I whispered. I thought they loved me. I thought I had a family. You still do, Alfreda replied, squeezing my hand. Just not the one you expected. In that moment, surrounded by women who had walked through darkness and found their strength again, I felt something new. Belonging. A few days later, I visited Robert's grave, something I had postponed for months. The cemetery was quiet, the air heavy, the sky gray. I knelt beside his headstone and traced his name with my fingers. Oh, Robert, I whispered, I think I lost myself trying to save a son who doesn't want me. The wind rustled the leaves gently, like a hand brushing through my hair. I told him everything. The wedding, the betrayal, the manipulation, the financial abuse. And as I spoke, I realized I wasn't just mourning my son. I was mourning the illusion of who he used to be. I'm done now, I whispered. I'm coming back to myself. When I returned home, their cars were there. 3 of them, parked outside my gate. Max, Lena, 2 strangers, standing on my lawn like vultures. I stayed in the car and immediately called Mr. Weber. They're here again. More people this time. His answer was immediate. Stay in your car. I'm calling the police. I'm coming right now. Minutes later, 2 patrol cars arrived. The officer spoke with Max and Lena. I watched from my seat as Lena cried again, fake tears. Max shouted, waved his arms, pointed angrily at my house. But this time the police escorted them away. Max screamed, You're going to pay for this. Lena shouted, You owe us. I didn't answer. I didn't even step out of my car. Mr. Weber stood beside me, satisfied. That, he said, is the final piece of evidence we needed. 3 weeks later it came. The official notice. Max and Lena had filed a formal lawsuit to declare me mentally incompetent, asking the court to assign them legal guardianship over my life, my finances, my home, my future. They wanted everything. And this time, they were using the legal system to try and take it. Mr. Weber arranged a professional cognitive evaluation with Dr. Moore, a respected psychiatrist in her 50s with intelligent eyes and a reassuring tone. For 2 hours, she tested me. Memory, logic, reason, emotion, financial understanding, decision-making. When it was over, she smiled warmly. Mrs. Richter, she said, your cognitive ability is excellent. Your scores are not only normal, they're higher than average. I exhaled for the first time in hours. Why are they doing this to me? I asked. Doctor. Moore closed her notebook and said the truth that soothed and burned all at once. This is elder financial exploitation. They want your money. Nothing else. That night, Eleanor gathered our friends again. When I told them about the incompetence lawsuit, every woman in that room stood up. We will testify. Cynthia raised her hand first, then Maria, then Carmen, then Alfreda. I cried, not tears of pain, but tears of strength. I wasn't alone. Not anymore. As the trial approached, everything felt surreal. I cleaned my house, prepared my documents, reviewed my notes. At night, I lay awake replaying every moment, every word, every humiliation. But there was no fear now. Only clarity, only determination. The mother they had known, the quiet, obedient woman desperate for love, no longer existed. A new woman was taking her place, and she was ready for war. The morning of the trial felt heavy, like the sky itself carried the weight of everything I had endured. I dressed slowly. Black suit, pearl earrings Robert had gifted me for our 20th anniversary. A small touch of lipstick, not to look younger, but to remind myself that I was still here. Still standing. Still me. Mr. Weber arrived at 7 o'clock sharp, carrying his leather briefcase and a calm confidence that steadied my heart. "Renata," he said gently, "today you don't need to fight. The truth will fight for you." We drove to the courthouse together in silence, not because we were nervous, but because sometimes silence is the strongest prayer. In the hallway outside courtroom 4B, I saw them. Max, my son, wearing a suit that didn't match his posture, too stiff, too formal, too borrowed. And beside him, Lena. Her black dress was dramatic, almost theatrical. Her hair was perfectly curled. Her makeup just smudged enough to look like she had already cried. A performance. As always, two strangers. Yet somehow once, long ago, they were the center of my world. Max refused to meet my eyes. Lena stared directly at me with a cold triumph, as if she already knew the ending. In her mind, this was simple. Cut off the mother. Take the money. Move on. But this time, I wasn't the same mother. I wasn't walking into a courtroom to be humiliated. I was walking in to reclaim my life. Max's lawyer rose first. He was polished, sharp, a man who had practiced the speech in front of a mirror. "Your Honor," he began, "we are here today because the family of Mrs. Renata Richter fears for her mental well-being." He spoke slowly, like every word tasted holy. "She has suddenly cut off all communication with her son. She has installed unnecessary security systems. She has isolated herself, made irrational financial decisions, and engaged in behavior demonstrating clear cognitive decline." I sat there, calm, watching his performance. He made my freedom sound like madness, my boundaries sound like illness, my independence sound like danger. Then he delivered the blow. "We request the court assign legal guardianship to her son, Mr. Max Richter, so he may protect her finances and ensure she is not manipulated by outsiders." Manipulated? Outsiders? He meant Eleanor. He meant Cynthia. He meant every kind person who had helped me stand after years of falling. But most of all, he meant Mr. Weber. They wanted me isolated so they could consume everything. When they called Lena to the stand, she transformed. Every step was slow. Every breath was heavy. Every blink was pre-timed. "Your Honor," she began, voice trembling. "Renata has always been like a second mother to me." I nearly laughed. Always. I was nothing but a bank account to her. "She loved us so much," Lena continued, dabbing her eye with a tissue she clearly prepared for dramatic effect. "But recently something changed. She doesn't trust us anymore. She thinks we want her money." The courtroom was silent, and then she whispered, with fake pain dripping from her voice, "We are terrified of losing her." Mr. Weber rose for cross-examination. "Mrs. Schuster," he said sharply, "when was the last time you called my client simply to ask how she was, without asking for money?" Lena blinked. I don't remember the exact dates." "Did you invite her to your wedding?" "It was small." "Did you tell her only special people were invited?" Lena flinched. What was the context, Mr. Weber asked calmly, in which telling a 71-year-old woman she was not special would be reasonable? Lena looked like a puppet whose strings had tangled. No answer. When Max was sworn in, something inside me cracked. My son, my only child, the one I held at age 4 when he cried over losing a toy car, the one I worked 3 jobs for so he could go to university, the one I loved more than myself. And now he was here, testifying against me. He didn't look at me even once. "Your Honor," he said, "my mother has become unpredictable. She cuts people off. She refuses help. She installed cameras everywhere. She thinks people are after her money." "But aren't they?" Mr. Weber murmured under his breath. When it was his turn, Mr. Weber rose slowly. "Mr. Richter," he said, "how much money have you and your wife received from your mother in the past 3 years?" I don't have the exact numbers." "Does $33,400 sound familiar?" Max swallowed hard. "Maybe. She's always been generous." "And how many times have you visited your mother without asking for money?" Silence. "Is it true, Mr. Weber continued, that you and your wife entered her home without permission, searched her personal documents, and attempted to pressure her into signing a power of attorney?" We were worried for her. Is it true or not? Max's jaw tightened. He knew lying could cost him. Yes. The courtroom shifted. The judge took notes. Max shrank. For the first time, I saw guilt flicker in his eyes. But guilt is not love, and regret is not an apology. Mr. Weber called our witnesses. Mr. Green, the pharmacist, explained how Lena tricked him into signing a misleading document. Mr. Summer from the hardware store testified that I was absolutely lucid, sharp, and making rational home security upgrades. Eleanor and the garden club women, every one of them took the stand and radiated truth. She is mentally strong. She cooks, cleans, drives, socializes. She is clear, logical, independent. She is reviving. I cried silently in my seat, not because of the trial, but because I had family again. Not by blood, but by choice. I walked to the witness stand with my heart pounding but my spine straight. I swore to tell the truth. And I did. I told the judge everything. The money, the humiliation, the wedding, the pressure, the threats, the manipulation, the invasion of my privacy. And finally, why did you cut off financial support? Mr. Weber asked. I took a breath that felt like freedom. Because the love I thought I had was never real. Because I spent 3 years paying to be treated as a mother. Because once the money stopped, so did the illusion. Because I realized I mattered less to them than my bank account. Do you regret anything? He asked softly. Yes, I said. Max and Lena leaned forward, hopeful. I only regret, I finished, that it took me so long to walk away. Judge Miller disappeared for 2 hours. Every second felt like a year. When he finally returned, the entire courtroom held its breath. He adjusted his glasses. And then, after reviewing all evidence, testimonies, and professional evaluations, my heart stopped. It is clear that Mrs. Richter is in full control of her mental faculties. Max's head dropped. Lena's mouth fell open. Her decisions, financial or otherwise, are rational, deliberate, and her legal right. A pause. Furthermore, this court finds significant evidence of financial motivation behind the plaintiff's actions. Another pause. The request for guardianship is denied. I closed my eyes. I didn't cheer. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I simply breathed. For the first time in years. That night, Eleanor hosted a celebration. Cynthia brought champagne. Maria made empanadas. Carmen brought flowers. Alfreda brought wisdom. Renata, she said, raising her glass, you didn't just survive. You reclaimed your life. We toasted to freedom, to dignity, to self-love, to new beginnings. 3 months later, I sold a house full of painful memories. I moved into a beautiful city apartment near a theater and a lake. I donated half my savings to organizations defending elderly abuse victims. I traveled through Europe for the first time in my life. I resumed painting, the hobby I abandoned decades ago. I made new friends. I rebuilt myself. Max and Lena disappeared. No calls. No emails. No apologies. I heard later they had to move into a cheaper apartment. Lena finally got a job. Life forced them to grow up. My money never could. Some nights, I stand on my balcony and look at the stars. I think of the woman I used to be. A woman desperate for love. A woman who confused money with affection. A woman afraid to be alone. That woman is gone. A new woman stands in her place. A woman who knows her worth. A woman who chooses her own joy. A woman who loves herself first. My name is Renata. I am 72 years old, and I finally learned the most valuable lesson of my life. True love never has a price, and freedom is never too expensive. If you enjoyed my story, I would love to hear your thoughts. What would you do in my place? Tell me in the comments. Your opinions mean more than you know. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe, like the video, and stay with me. There are so many stories still waiting to be told. Until next time,